You hear the name Umar ibn al-Khattab, and you probably think of one thing: strength. A man with an iron will and imposing presence. But his story is so much more than that. It's really about transformation. We're going to dive into how that raw, untamed power got forged into true, righteous leadership.
So that brings us to the big question that really frames his whole life, right? What does it take? What transforms that raw strength into the kind of leadership that actually changes the world? Well, Umar's journey gives us a pretty incredible answer. And the key, the absolute heart of this change, was his incredibly close bond with the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. I mean, this companionship didn't just tweak his personality, it completely refined him. It took this man, who was famous for his harshness, and turned him into someone eloquent, clear-sighted, a real leader. And this refinement wasn't just some abstract idea. Oh no, it was forged in the heat of battle, in these really profound moments of teaching. Our first stop, the aftermath of the massive Battle of Badr. So try to picture this. The dust has settled after this huge victory. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, walks over to a dry well where the bodies of the enemy leaders, the mushrikeen, had been placed. And then he does something that no one expected. He starts talking to them, calling them out by name. Now, for Umar, who's this incredibly practical, get-it-done kind of guy, this just made no sense. So he asks a question that, from a purely physical point of view, is totally logical. It really shows you where his head was at back then. Direct, material, straight to the point. And the Prophet's answer is, it's just amazing. He doesn't shut Umar down. Instead, he completely expands Umar's whole understanding of reality. He teaches him that there's more to this world than what our eyes can see, a reality where the spirit carries on. And you can just imagine how this one lesson started to totally reshape Umar's view of everything. Okay, so Umar's strength wasn't just physical. It was this fierce, protective instinct. And as his faith got deeper, that instinct was sharpened into this incredible intuition. You'll see exactly what I mean in this next story. So, after the defeat at Badr, this enemy, a guy named Umar ibn al-Khattab, shows up in Medina. Now, this is a man known for persecuting Muslims, and he's got a sword slung around his neck. He says he's just there to ransom his son, but his real mission? Assassination.
And other people might have bought his story, but not Umar. His spiritual insight just sliced right through the lie. He saw the evil in this man's heart, plain as day. He didn't just see a visitor, he saw an enemy of Allah with a dark plan. So what does he do? He grabs the man by the strap of his own sword and marches him straight to the Prophet.
And this is where it gets brilliant. You see this perfect interplay between Umar's protective strength and the Prophet's wisdom. The Prophet, with knowledge straight from God, just calmly lays it all out. He recounts the secret conversation Umar had back in Mecca, detailing the entire assassination plot. Can you imagine? Faced with this absolute miracle, the would-be assassin's hatred just evaporates. He accepts Islam right there on the spot. Umar's intuition was dead on, and it actually kicked off this incredible conversion. Umar's character was tested again, big time, after their really tough Battle of Uhud. In what looked like a moment of defeat, his voice became the very symbol of the community's unshakable faith. The enemy commander, Abu Sufyan, is standing across the valley, just taunting the Muslims, glorifying his idols, Hubal and al-Uzza. But even then, in that super tense moment, the Prophet is teaching. He tells his followers exactly how to answer, not with insults, but with these powerful declarations of faith, showing the difference between the flimsy power of idols and the eternal power of God.
And who do you think was chosen to deliver this powerful reply? Whose voice was it that boomed across that valley for everyone to hear? It was Umar. His declaration was the final word. It turned what looked like a military loss into this incredible spiritual victory. But sometimes the biggest test for a strong person like Umar isn't an enemy you can see. It's an internal battle. And that came to a boiling point during the negotiations for the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. See, the treaty had these terms that on the surface just seemed humiliating, unfair to the Muslims. And Umar's sense of justice, his honor, was just on fire. The questions he asked the Prophet were passionate, they were logical, and they came from this deep desire to protect the community. He just could not wrap his head around why they would accept a deal like this. But here's the thing. It's what happened after that's so important.
When it was later revealed that the treaty was actually a clear victory from God, Omar was just filled with this deep, deep regret for ever questioning the Prophet. And this, right here, shows you the depth of his character. He spent years giving charity, fasting, freeing slaves, all because he was afraid of the consequences of that one moment of doubt. His strength was now being tempered with real humility. So what Umar learned from this incredibly intense trial was the real meaning of submission and this gift of sakina, tranquility. Think about it. While he was all worked up, the Prophet was completely calm, totally sure of God's plan. This sakina is this divine peace that God sends down in tough times, and it's what allows your faith to grow even stronger. Omar had to learn to find that peace, not in his own logic, but in trusting the Prophet's wisdom. So after being tested, humbled, and refined, Umar's strength was now ready for something new: leadership. And the Prophet himself now started to entrust him with actual command. And we see the payoff in a campaign to a place called Turba. He was qualified, right? He was appointed to lead against a really dangerous enemy. He was strategic, using clever tactics like traveling at night to get the element of surprise. And, crucially, he was disciplined. He followed the Prophet's instructions to the letter. That raw strength had finally been forged into effective, principled leadership. Omar's whole life journey is just a living, breathing example of this verse from the Quran. The Prophet was sent not just to give a message, but to purify the believers. And Omar, he was purified. His harshness was turned into justice, his anger into a protective zeal, and his doubt into this profound submission. And that brings us to this final, powerful moment, a command from the Prophet to Omar after the victory at Khaybar. The same man whose voice once defiantly echoed across the valley of Uhud was now given the job of announcing the ultimate truth of salvation. It was a role he had been prepared for his entire life. A transformation of strength, now complete, in service to his faith. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the ultimate purpose of our own strengths?